All right, welcome back to Blue by 90. I'm Justin, joined by Tanner and Kaylin today. It's been a minute since we've talked to you guys. Hope you guys had a very Merry Christmas, a good holiday season. It's been a long wait, I would say, from what was it, December 2nd, I believe, was the Big Ten championship. From that night until today, it is December 28th. We're coming at you before the Rose Bowl. It feels like it's been, I don't know, 3 months since we've watched Michigan football play, but holy shit, am I ready.
Kind of snuck up on us a little bit, right? Like,
did.
I feel like I was it's like, oh, we got like a month. And then I'm like, oh, it's 5 days from now, like, or 4 days or whatever it is. Today's Thursday. So, yeah, it's exciting. I know everybody's fired up. I told you I was going to share this real quick. So I went to Hawaii over Christmas, which was amazing. But I was down at the bottom of a caldera at the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, and I had a Michigan shirt on, hiking with my brother-in-law, father-in-law, and got like 3 Go Blues down at the bottom of a volcano. So it's everywhere. We went to go swim with manta rays at night, which was, if you ever have the chance, you have to do it. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
But the guy had a Michigan hat on. He grew up in Canton.
Nice.
He went to UM, and so we were just chatting, and I sat next to him on the boat, talked to him and his wife and his kids, and they're all Michigan fans, and so they're going to be watching the game from Maui. So I told him to check out the pod, and I told him if he's ever in town for a game to come find us at the tailgate spot. But shout out to that dude. He was super cool. And Michigan everywhere, man. Like, even when I was on vacation, like relaxing, not really thinking about the game, it's everywhere.
It truly is everywhere. That's super cool. I mean, I think I shared this with you guys when I was in Barcelona. We got to go blue from somebody there, which was incredible. So
yeah, I'm still on my my Christmas break down here. I stopped and visited some family in Orlando. We went to Universal, and I made sure to wear my Michigan shirt, and got a couple Go Blues. I got an interesting one. I got somebody said Michigan rocks, and I was like, huh, never heard that one, but Go Blue.
All right.
Okay.
Michigan
Thank you.
rocks. Okay.
Hey, I was at the Kona. So some of the Hawaii airports are wild. Like, it's all just outdoors. Like, it's not like a normal terminal, you know? So I see a gal with a Michigan like quarter zip on, and I see it, and I'm just like, Go Blue. Nothing. No response. And I just like kept it moving because I'm not going to sit there. You know, it's like you don't want to give yourself a high five. I was like, I hope nobody saw that. I just kept
it definitely is like one of those situations where you're like, all right, yep, Go Blue myself.
Cool. Yes. It's like they just look at you and you're like, do you know what you're wearing?
We've said it before. That is like literally my biggest pet peeve. I don't know why, but it bothers me.
I will say it used to be like shameful. Like, people didn't want to say it, but now like I literally had 2 little kids like go out of their way to go like, Go Blue. I was like, this is amazing.
I do agree. And I've, just in the past few weeks, past month, in the month of December, seen so many Michigan flags hanging from people's houses, and, everyone's rocking the gear. A lot of Michigan versus everybody's as well. So love that. I mean, I do think like it's just cool to see everybody all in on it. And, it's nice after years of, to your point, Kaylin, after years of like, all right, come December, it's like, all right, I'm not wearing my Michigan hoodie for a while after an Ohio State loss or something like that. But now we can wear it proudly. Not that I was never not wearing it, but you know what I mean. So, yeah, and I want to give a plug real quick. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, in a little bit. But to North Peak Brewing, obviously, for Hail IPA and Blue by 90 beer and Pretzel Bell, we will be having a watch party at Pretzel Bell again on January 1st. So I think there's a game that day or something going on that some Michigan fans might want to tune into. But the big deal is we'll have $1 Blue by 90 beers at Pretzel Bell. So come, and that, $15 gets you 15 beers. So I'm not a great math guy, but I can do that math. That seems like a pretty damn good deal. So very excited about that. So yeah, come on down, come hang. And yeah, I know you guys, I believe, will be there. I am flying out to Pasadena in 2 days, and I do want to touch on that of just how I'm like a little kid, like so giddy to go to the Rose Bowl. Like this is lifelong dream stuff. I'm talking to all of my friends, fans, all this stuff, and everyone's like, the people that have already been there are like, it's going to be the greatest thing you'll ever experience. Legitimately. They're like, it is top 5 sporting event in the entire world, up there with the Masters and, you know, Wimbledon and all those types of things. Like the Rose Bowl is that cool. And I am just like dreaming of the moment, you know, LA, sunny skies, it's 65 degrees in Pasadena, maize and blue everywhere. There's red roses everywhere. You know, the parade's going on. I hear the victors, the band coming down the Rose Bowl parade. And then we get a Let's Go Blue chant going into the stadium. Like, holy shit, is that going to be a moment? I'm on top of the world already just thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the weather. It looks like it's going to be 0% precipitation, high of 62. So going to be beautiful weather.
Well, they do say, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but they do say that God doesn't allow it to rain on the Rose Bowl. So
that's a good phrase, man. But yeah, like, you know, I've been to Southern California a couple of times. You know, I used to work for a company based in Newport Beach. And every time I went, man, like it's, you know, it's absolutely gorgeous. You know, the ocean and the weather. And so I'm excited for you, man. That's something that I'd like to do. You know, right now, after going to the playoff game last year, I was like, I'm probably going to wait. And I've always told myself when Michigan goes to the Rose Bowl, I want to go. And so hopefully there'll be more in the future. So I'm definitely jealous. But yeah, the Rose Parade, man, that always is fun to watch on New Year's Day. Always kind of a little tradition. And it's a nice when Michigan is in the Rose Bowl because this is the first time since 2007.
Yep.
So 16 years to the day, and we'll hope for a better outcome this time. But man, it was yeah, I'm super stoked for you. I'm very, you know, jealous, but in a good sense.
Yeah, I'll just be living vicariously through you. We'll be dependent on your tweets and picks and whatnot.
My chest is safe though. I will not get punched.
That's true.
Right, yeah.
State
Yeah.
You know what?
I'll leave the puffer vest at home.
that punch during that Penn State game, though, I think got us to a victory. So I don't want to take too much credit. But.
That's true.
And then after the Ohio State game, got a couple 1-2 combos landed.
I mean, that was I was again on top of the world after that. So I mean, listen.
I don't blame you. I'm happy for it. I hope you come back. Like you come back and like we see each other in like the 4th or something, and you just punch me. Like I'm hoping for that.
Oh God. Yeah, I will be like, I don't know. I'm not nervous yet. I'm anxious to get there and be all about it. How are you guys feeling about this game? I mean, the reality is that not many teams in the past decade or 2 decades have beat Alabama. Legitimately, you can count them. You know, it's probably an average of 1 per year, right? Is where they're at during this Nick Saban dynasty. And so, you know, I'm still on the train of, you know, I'm not going to bitch about who our opponent is in the playoff because you're in the playoff. You're going to play a good team. You're one of the last 4 teams standing. Guess what? Your prize is playing a really good team. That's the reality of it. But, you know, I mean, to slay the Bama Dragon is not it's a pretty tall feat, right? It's something that not many teams have done out there. So how are you guys feeling going into this one when, you know, it's an interesting Bama team, but it's still Bama?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of folks who are scared because it is Alabama, right? More so than the actual team. And look, they've got 18 5-stars I think I saw on their roster. They've got a ton of talent, right? Like we're happy if Michigan gets 1 a year, right? If you can just get 1 a year.
Everybody's happy. There's only 35 in each class. You know, like, that's insanity.
Yeah. So, but you know, I do subscribe to the theory of advanced statistics, and I really do like SP plus. I know Michigan is 9 points better this year in SP plus than Alabama is. Now that's not gospel. That's not foolproof. Like that is just an indicator of success, right? And a predictive, just a predictive algorithm that Bill Connolly and ESPN utilizes. And it's typically pretty spot on, right? Like I think it had Michigan 27, Ohio State 20, or maybe 26-20. So Michigan wins by 6. It's dead on, right? But So this is an Alabama team that's not otherworldly like it was in 2020, for example, or some of the national championship teams, but it's still Alabama. It's still Nick Saban. But I don't think the nerves have set in for me quite yet. I think as we get to like Saturday, Sunday, and then obviously Monday, I'll start to feel it. But I'm just still enjoying this season, enjoying looking back on the 13-0 record, and just hoping that the boys are going to come out ready to go, man, because there's nothing you can do to control it. But I don't know, like the Ohio State-Michigan game, man, I don't know if it was because I was in the stadium or what, but I was never nervous. And I think it's because this team just has such great leadership from its players. I just felt like they were going to get it done, and that's how I feel about Monday as well.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because, like you were saying earlier, it's easy to get lost with that like long time period from the last game to this one. So I'm still going like, isn't there like a month to the game a little bit? Totally. So honestly, I probably won't feel anything till the pregame show starts. But just looking at some of the stats and things like that, honestly, I'm trying to not get like wrapped up in that because then that will make me more nervous.
Yes.
Yeah. So they got 5 stars. We got a couple. And I think the scariest thing for me is the fact that it's the trajectory of the Alabama team. The fact that they've been like improving. Yeah. But like you said, right, you know you're going to play a good team in the playoff. That's why you came to Michigan. So I feel like these guys are going to be very like tuned in and ready to go, especially because so many of them haven't won a bowl game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even going as far back as like Michael Barrett, right? Guys like that who've been there for a long time, who've even played Alabama before. They're looking for their first bowl win. So I think these guys are going to be tuned in and kind of ready to go.
Yeah, I agree. They it's been talked about that they have taken a different approach this year as well. I know in past years they've used this month to be physically ready, hit in practice and all that stuff. And I know that this year it's been a lot different. It's been majority walkthroughs, really, with lifting and a lot more meeting wise, a lot more preparation, a lot more film. So I wonder how that's going to affect these guys. Will they be ready to pop right from the get-go? There's sometimes when you take a month off of hitting after 13 straight weeks of hitting that it's like, oh shit, like I forgot, what it's like to get, dinged up or something like that. Sometimes there's that, but I think that how they're approaching it this year is definitely more like they were super confident last year, almost to the point of arrogance a little bit. Now it's more, they've told me like reserved, confidence. They're confident in their ability, but they want to make sure that there's not overthinking it. Right. And overdoing all that. So they know what's on the line. I think there's no doubt that they all are aware of what happened the last 2 years. They all know that. They all know there's uncertainty about the future, right? Some of these guys, obviously, Mikey, Sainer still, Blake and Chris Jenkins, and you could go down the list. This will be possibly their last time suiting up, right? So they know that. But even guys, the younger guys are, who knows what Jim Harbaugh does? Who knows if JJ, leaves? I think that they're all taking that in stride as well. And it's like, all right, right here, right now is everything. We've got to give it everything we've got because you never know what tomorrow brings.
Yeah, I could go without last year's, talking about we're going to come out and run all over them and like that stuff. I never really liked that last year. I don't think
that was you, Tanner. That was all you.
Probably.
Waving at the crowd.
I did. Yes, I did wave at the crowd on Donovan's first run. If Ronnie Bell could have got a block, maybe we have a different outcome in that game. But no, I think being reserved and having that silent confidence is dangerous, right? For a team that, they've taken a lot of lumps this year for whatever, all the outside noise. There's still stuff being done by Alabama, which makes no sense. I don't know if you guys saw the stuff about the iPads. Like you guys, you hired George Hilo, but you're concerned about your iPad. Like, come on, man. Like we're talking about like espionage level tactics. Like, what are we talking about here?
All right. I'm sure that most people by the time this is posted will have seen this, but for people that haven't seen it, got to give a shout out to our guy CJ, who is already in Pasadena at practice. absolutely crushing it with the coverage on blueby90.com. If there's something out there, it's on blueby90.com, and CJ's writing the article. So want to give him a shout out. He is honestly one of the best out there and has been killing it for us. And so he was at Bama's presser. Isaiah Bond and Tyler Booker, two Bama players, said that Alabama has not been able to watch film on their at-home tablets due to the sign stealing allegations. Booker added that Bama wants to keep anything more in-house. And he said this is a rule from the Bama coaches. Bama is still watching just as much film in groups, and they insisted this is a precaution. He said, hold on, sorry, real quick, I'll just end it here. Players are largely unconcerned with the allegations, but playing things safe. So my response, my tweet that I said back to CJ was, how did we get from an iPhone video in row 40 to all of a sudden we have a computer iPad hacking operation? How do we jump? That's a hell of a leap.
And the funniest part is that sign stealing is not illegal. I feel like we're beating a dead horse, but like we have to remind some of these folks with smoother brains than others that you can utilize film from the different services. They don't use Huddle, but they use something similar to Huddle. I can't remember what it's called. Catapult. Yeah. That's right. We had a conversation about Catapult, which is interesting.
Yep.
I don't understand, like, what are we talking about? Because that film is available, right?
That film is 100% available. So what I mean, I guess the only thing would be their own practice film. I guess I know that that's
a hell of an allegation, by the way, which has been thrown out there by message board rumors.
I have a great idea, right? We've now established it's okay to poach previous coaches for things like that, right? So why don't we just start, instead of the one more year fund, we start the big game fund, and it's just a fund purely dedicated to, hey, they're paying you $700,000 a year. We'll pay you $700,000 for a week. Just come here, help us prep, and then we'll beat you.
My thing with that is, I think we talked about this when it happened. I don't really care that George Hilo got hired by Alabama, but I find it really weird that in the middle of the season, you can just hire a guy on additionally as an analyst, as a low-level staffer, as that term is big time. But I that's weird. Like, you can just go and do that. Like, totally. When Michigan, when Chris Partridge was dismissed, they brought on Jesse Minter's dad to be the linebackers coach because he was already on staff, right? I find it really weird, though, in the middle of a season that you can go and hire somebody. But I'm pretty sure this has happened in the NFL. Hugh Jackson, when he was fired by the Browns, went to the Bengals the same season. That's weird, right?
Super
like
weird.
You should have to go into battle with the guys you have.
There should be clauses for sure that you cannot go to somebody like on your schedule in the next 2 years or something. I don't know, something like that. Like, a lot of these things, especially with the transfer portal now, how does anybody keep their playbook in-house? Like,
True.
I mean,
they don't.
How many thousands of kids are in the portal right now? Guess what? Every single one of them has a physical playbook. And I'm sure that they have to turn stuff in, but they could have been taking pictures of it all year long. And then they transfer to an in-conference team. And it's like, okay, well, they have all their plays. Like, so
yeah,
the whole thing is just,
it's a joke.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, it's a joke. We won't continue to beat this dead horse, but yeah, the whole thing is a joke. And the fact that Saban is having his players talk about this, maybe some, some nervousness coming from Tuscaloosa.
That's not the Saban I know. I'll say that. Honestly, the Saban I know is like, I'll give you my playbook. I'm still better than you. And
I'll give you a Hellcat and we'll keep it rolling, right? Yeah, like, that's the Saban I know. Yeah. That's the GOAT Saban.
Yeah.
He was given NIL deals 2 decades before this stuff started. So yeah, it's just interesting to me to hear what certain people have to say. But yeah, I thought that whole thing was just really weird and just kind of, a little bit of insecurity. I don't know, which is crazy to say, almost blasphemous to say about the University of Alabama, which has won 6 titles in the last 15 years.
Totally.
But like, why is that the talking point here? You know?
Right. This is it feels like somebody read a headline somewhere and just totally ran with it versus if somebody actually like followed the story, they would be like, "Oh, okay, this is nothing for our team to really worry about."
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know all the context because who knows what they were asked, and all that stuff, and they might have just been answering a question. But yeah, I'm surprised that even if it was happening, that it got out there, right? Because it does, show a little bit of that insecurity or nervousness. And so I don't know, man. It does feel like the script is flipped a little bit where in past years, and it still is like this. Like Bama still is. Listen, until Nick Saban retires and they don't win a title once every 3 years or whatever, once every other year at times, they're going to be the team to beat. But I do think that like there is a piece right now that Michigan is the team to beat. I think our own guys think that we're the team to beat, in this. And, Vegas does think that. I think there are two different narratives. One, it's a very different thing from being favored in Vegas to people actually thinking you're going to win. And that's where, like, I've had a lot of discussions with my Sparty friends and whatever, Ohio State friends that are like, why are you guys playing the underdog card? You're favored in Vegas. I was like, that's literally a computer system, putting out stuff that when every talking head says that they don't think we're going to win, that's why we play the underdog card. But I still think that our guys, our team, they're like, we're the top dog here. We're better than you. We're going to go win this game and go take it from you. I think that's the mentality. So I love that, by the way.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And I, as we talk about this game and as I've thought about it leading up, I think the thing that I keep kind of coming back to is, the fact that you can confuse Jalen Milroe with coverages. And when I hear a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously wide receiver to quarterback, different position. Quarterback has to know a lot more, right? But the fact that Marvin Harrison Jr., whose dad was one of the best to ever do it in the NFL, played with a guy who's one of the best at diagnosing coverages, for him to come out and say, they showed me coverages I had never seen before, I have some confidence that the defense can do what they need to do and confuse him. Obviously, he's a threat coming out of the pocket and running the ball, but he takes a lot of sacks too. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at his game-by-game log here on ESPN. There's multiple games with 5 sacks, 6 sacks, a bunch with 4 sacks. That has been cleaned up recently, although he took 4 against Georgia. So when I think about this matchup, I think it comes down to, at least from the Michigan defense versus Alabama offense, it's all about Jalen Milroe. And can you confuse him? Can you force him to hold the ball? Because the longer he holds the ball, the more inaccurate he is when he has to progress through his reads and make a decision. And maybe it's not exactly what the route tree was supposed to be. He's got to make a play. That's where I think Michigan can have some success. So that gives me some confidence. But I don't know what you guys think about that. But as I'm just thinking about the game, like that's where I think the key matchup is for Michigan defensively, is just forcing Milroe to make mistakes, because he has gotten better, but he's had moments where it's like, what, even that Auburn game, like they needed a 4th and 27 or whatever it was, a 4th and goal from the 27 to win that game.
I mean, they were a miracle away from not even being here, right?
Right.
So
Jalen Milroe is probably the key wild card for this game, right? And as a Michigan fan, I definitely have like flashbacks for some mobile QB. So that's where, for me, I get pretty nervous.
But this is not the Don Brown defense, right?
Yes, that's the exact other part of that equation. This is not Don Brown's, blitz everybody.
Well, that Don Brown defense against mobile quarterbacks, though, like that was pretty good against JT Barrett, against Trace McSorley, right? Against some of those more mobile quarterbacks, but
a lot of losses in there.
True, I get that, yeah. But that's when the pro style quarterbacks Ohio State came up, and that's when Michigan's defense started to get shredded. But I mean, I'm
honestly,
with you though.
I go back to like even like Kirk Cousins, like Connor Cook, like they ran all over us somehow. You can even
go as far as last year versus TCU with Max Duggan. So, I mean, you don't have to go that far to feel bad as a Michigan fan versus a mobile QB. So that's where I get pretty nervous. But I think that I think the interior defensive line for Michigan is really good, so we can plug up the run. which is going to force Milrow to like run left or right. And that's where I go, like, I really trust our defensive backs in that sense. And I think Junior Colson is just, and Mike Barrett for that matter, is just crushing it these days.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of confidence.
And I think one of the keys to this game for Michigan in winning it, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is what they've done all year. Got to create turnovers. And I think Milrow is that guy that is, that's possible, right? He's not going to just take a sack and, play another down. He's going to try and do the Johnny football spin out and do crazy shit, and he's good at doing it a lot of the time, right? There's no doubt. He's probably, let's be honest, he gets on the field, he's probably the best athlete on the field, right? Him and JJ are probably two of the best athletes on the field. So, I do think, though, like you said at the beginning, Tanner, like if we can get to him and get in his face, get him on his heels early, and then all of a sudden he's throwing off his back foot, he's unsure of his guys. I think that makes a huge difference. And, I mean, listen, how many games have we not had a turnover in? Are there any?
Good question. Wow.
Maybe here or there. I don't know. But the thing going back to the mobile quarterbacks, I'm just thinking about it. Like I'm trying to think on the schedule who Michigan has played with a somewhat mobile quarterback. I mean,
Maryland
from
is
Nebraska, right?
closer.
Like he didn't really do much. Wimsat, look, and these we're not comparing these guys to Jalen Milrow and the Alabama offense. So if anybody's going to clip this, please don't. But I'm just thinking Michigan has been very disciplined in their rush lanes. You don't see quarterbacks a lot of time for Michigan. Like Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Chris Jenkins are very disciplined. And so when that pressure comes and that pocket starts to collapse, most quarterbacks want to get up in it. I feel like Michigan has the guys that will stay disciplined and be able to make a play, or at least let their guys rally to the ball and make the quarterback, not just have a free lane to rush through. So that's where I think Michigan's defensive line is going to have to be big, right? Because you want to be able to get that classic pass rush deep past the tackle, but you don't want to lose contain on him. So I'm sure that's a coaching point. I'm sure that's something that's going to be very heavily emphasized. But yeah, I just feel like this defense with the guys in the back end, and they've all been playing amazing football. I mean, how many times do we talk about Makari Page? Never. And that's a good thing for his position, right? Like he is the last stop. He is the last line of defense. He's played fantastic. And then obviously we've talked a lot about Will Johnson, who's had a really strong close to the end of the year. Rod Moore, Mike Sainer, still don't need to talk too much about him because we know he's a stud. And then Josh Wallace as well. So, and look, this Alabama offense does not have a Jerry Jeudy. It does not have a Jalen Waddle. It does not have a Henry Ruggs, right? So I just feel like this is going to be a good matchup for Michigan's defense. And I think they can hold them to, maybe 20, 24 points. And then that puts the onus on the offense. Can they get back to running the football? Can JJ get back in rhythm? What does the O-line look like with a month to prepare with no Zach Zinter, right? Like we talked about the Iowa game and how frustrating it was to not be able to run the ball. And yes, against Iowa, you can do that. But what does the last month of practice look like for Carson Barnhart at guard and Trent Tate at right tackle? Like those are things that I think about when it comes to the offensive side of the ball for Michigan, to be able to move the ball, stay ahead of the chains, get those quick hitters out, and then also be able to take deep shots. Like JJ needs to be able to sit in the pocket for at least a couple seconds. It can't be the Penn State game, right?
Totally. And so to answer my own question there, we had one game without a turnover forced, and that was against UNLV, game 2. We've had a turnover in every single game other than that. So, it'd be shocking if we didn't get one, right? And I think that you could point to that, as that's going to be an X factor in this game. But to follow up after you, Tanner, I do want to talk about this offense now. To me, it was the first thing you said. We have to run the ball. There's this Bama front seven is going to be a Bama front seven. I don't think they're, the Georgia 2021 defense where they have like they only have 11 players on defense, somehow have 15 like first round picks. They're not that good, but there's still a lot of talent and a lot of beef on that front seven. But you know what? That's the reality. Again, that's what you're playing against. And if you really are, a Joe Moore type offensive line, you're going to have to move those boys. And, in those last 3 games, let's be honest, they didn't in the last, call it 4 games with Penn State, Ohio State, and Iowa, they weren't able to establish the run all that often. Obviously, they found a way to win those games. But I just think that you're gonna have to be able to get chunk yards on runs, especially early in this game. Otherwise, it's gonna be tough for JJ to put this entire game on his back. He can't be second half versus TCU JJ against the Alabama defense. I would love him to, but I think you're going to need to establish and get Blake going right away if we want to win this game.
I'm also looking forward to seeing some of our other skill position players like kind of change the national narrative on them, right? Some of our, Roman Wilsons or Cornelius Johnson or even Big Game Dono to kind of show up, right? Some of these guys are going to need to play really well, and I think they're really good players and they have that ability. But I think this is the stage that they want, and this is the stage for them to really display it on. And also, like I was saying, Donovan Edwards, I think he's got to have just a day, and he should. This is like his kind
of game Don, baby, big game Don. They call it the money game for a reason, right? That was what the guys say. It's a money game. This is where you can go from a 3rd round pick to a 1st round pick, or a 4th round pick to a 2nd round pick if you have a big game, and vice versa, right? And so I agree with you. I think that a lot is going to be determined on what happens in this game for these guys' futures and everything like that. If you want to be the big dog on campus, you got to play well against the big dogs.
And I think some of these guys are slept on. So That's where I go, they have a real opportunity here to really display their talent. It's going to be tough, right, when you're going up against Kool-Aid McKinstry or something. But
But don't sleep on my guy Peyton O'Leary as well. Don't be shocked if you see Peyton O'Leary in this game getting some ball. All right, I'm all in on it. I think I like what you're saying, Kalen, of just like, they may have 5 stars, they may have all this stuff. We've got dogs too, right? We've guys that they're not going to be 1st round picks, but they're just as important, if not more important, to this game and to this team. Like, don't be shocked when, even Roman, he's not talked about on the national level anymore after, their first 7-game stretch where he was catching 2 touchdowns a game. He's a hell of a ball player, right? CJ, Cornelius Johnson, I still go back to it. Like, you go back to that Ohio State game. My dad and I watched it on Christmas morning together. And there was the one 4th down, or was it a 3rd down play where JJ's like scrambling to his right. He throws an insanely dangerous pass to the left, and CJ goes completely sideways this way to catch the ball. Like, those types of plays are going to win Michigan this game, where it's just, you're not doing anything flashy, but they do what they need to do to win the game. And every single guy on both offense and defense is going to have to contribute.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the Alabama defense, not only Kool-Aid McKinstry, who is mocked in the 1st round, you also have Terrion Arnold on the other side at corner, who I think I've seen be mocked higher than Kool-Aid McKinstry. So 2 studs at corner. The receivers are going to have to be big. And then also they have Chris Braswell and Dallas Turner are both really, really good edge prospects. Dallas Turner was a guy I think Michigan finished 2nd for in his recruitment. Probably got a Hellcat out of that. But so you look at this defense, and to your point, Justin, guys got to make plays, man. You got to win your individual matchups, right? I mean, Roman Wilson, this is a potential big opportunity for him. Hell, if he has a great game against whether it's McKinstry or Arnold, who are both 1st round picks at corner, like that could propel him into the 2nd round, maybe even the late 1st round, right? You always see a big run of receivers in the draft in recent years. I mean, I think there's been 8, 9, 10 guys in some drafts. So there's an opportunity for him to play himself in to that 1st round in the draft. But I also think about CJ, I think about Donovan, right? Justin, you made the point. Michigan against Penn State, they ran for 227 yards in that game. I think a lot of that was, people were kind of, it was a maligned, play calling performance in the 2nd half from Sharon. But when you look at that game, like, remember the 3rd and 10 that JJ, it was just a design like sweep.
Yeah.
And he had Kalel out there blocking for him, maybe Donovan blocking for him. It gets a first down. Donovan didn't he have a touchdown on like a 3rd and 13?
Yep.
Donovan had a big run. So Donovan's got to be involved in the run game, but they also got to get him involved in the passing game. Like I feel like we've been beating this drum for the last 3 seasons. You have to utilize him in the pass game. And this is another guy who could play his way up the draft boards if he has a big game. Like this should be a game where he gets at least 8 targets in the pass game. Honestly, like get him the ball. Obviously you're going to run Blake. You're going to run Donovan in between the tackles still, because you want to have that threat, but you've got to get him involved in the pass game. Like if you see him, and I know that they like to try to get him out wide, Donovan, and bring him back in to see if it's man or zone. Man, like let him line up out there. Why not?
Hey,
like I want to see 2 back packages with Blake and Donovan. I want to see Kalel in the game to not only run the ball, but to be a lead blocker, whether it's for JJ, for Blake, or Donovan. Like he's Michigan's best blocker at the running back position. And then the tight ends, obviously. Like you need Colson Loveland to come up with big plays like he has in his career. Like you talk about big games, Colson Loveland comes out in big games and plays his ass off. Like you have the Purdue game. He had the touchdown against Ohio State last year. Obviously, Ohio State this year, he had 5 catches for like 100 yards. AJ Barner hopefully gets involved. And, Max Bredesen too. Shout out to Kid Brady. Like we need to see him mauling dudes in the run game.
Absolutely. And, Barner's a guy I think is like the perfect example of I bet you 99% of Alabama fans don't have a clue who AJ Barner is, right? But like you look at him in that Ohio State game and all year long, like he is a huge piece of this offense. He's just as capable as Colston Loveland at this point. He doesn't quite have the speed of Colston, right? And the athletic ability, but like he is a huge piece. We can go to AJ Barner all day long. So it's those types of guys that I think are like the X factors where, Bama, obviously they're watching him and they're watching film, but they're not focused on AJ Barner, right? And so maybe you have him as a, key piece to this. And, I think that the last thing that I want to touch on here that's probably the most important thing that we've noticed in the last 2 years is you can't be shocked in the first 2 drives of what's happening. You can't have the lights be too bright here, right? You can't be like, oh shit, we're down 10-0 and now we're all right. Now we're getting in our rhythm, getting ready to play. That was even when we obviously had a success last year in those first 2 drives where we got down to the 1-yard line and that's when it happened. But you've got to be ready to go from the moment the ball is kicked, that first kickoff, right? So I do think that they'll be more ready than the last 2 years. Year 1 of, against Georgia in 2021, first of all, that team was maybe the greatest team of all time in college football, right? But they were not ready to smack and hit with those guys. Last year, they're too confident, right? So when things all of a sudden went wrong for the first time all year, it was like, oh shit, we got to figure this out. This year, you have to come out and be like, all right, we're playing super disciplined. We're not making mistakes from the get-go. You have to go out, hit them hard, come out with a trick play or a special wrinkle right from the get-go, put them on their heels. I think back to 2021 Iowa in the Big Ten championship game where it was like we were shot out of a cannon in that game, right? Where, you have the throw from Donovan to Roman. You have the Blake run where JJ's running in front of him and Lee blocking. We've got to have that kind of a jump start to this game and get out in front and get some momentum with that big Michigan crowd as well.
Yeah,
I love that take. Yeah.
It would be so nice to be on the other end of that, right? I mean, you think back like last year, the Phillies. I mean, Michigan started great, right? We joked about it. The Donovan run could have scored there. I mean, right up the middle. And then you get down and JJ makes a hell of a play to almost score to get it to 4th and 2, and then you run the Philly special. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that, buddy. But you think about 21, right? Like shell shocked, like, oh shit, it's 14-0 and they're moving the ball at will. And then you got Jordan Davis at 350 pounds chasing down Blake Corum on a stretch play, and you're like, oh shit, right? And then you even go back to 2019, Jerry Jeudy burns Dax Hill, first play of the game. Yep. Shout out Don Brown. 2018, you get shell shocked by Florida. 2016, Florida State comes out to a huge lead, right? And then 2015 was the first year with Harbaugh. So it's like, can we be on the other side of this, right? Like, how much fun would it be to have that Big Ten championship experience against Iowa 2 years ago where it's like, oh, Blake Corum, 70-yard touchdown run, Donovan Edwards, 75-yard touchdown pass. I want to see a Donovan pass, by the way.
Yes,
bring it out. Like Donovan, if he could have got one more step, that would have been 6. By the way, can you imagine how electric that place would have been if he had thrown a touchdown to go up 2 scores? I may have levitated out of there, to be honest with you. But like, yeah, Sharon, Jim, everybody involved, Kurt Campbell, like it needs to be the best scripted opening drive of your lives. Like it has to be. You need to go and get points. Like I like. Last year, I think the momentum just got just drowned out at that point. I mean, in TCU, I don't think TCU went down and scored. I think Michigan forced a punt because Will Johnson had a great pass breakup. Again, I have like weird memory when it comes to sports. I can tell you,
like Rain Man.
You're like a savant.
Yeah. We joked about that at the Super Bowl last year or this year. But yeah, like I think for Michigan, it really is about coming out, starting hot. And I have no doubt that these guys can do that.
If you go back, there's one game, speaking of having a weird memory for football, 2022 at Iowa. Go back to that first drive. We had easy. Like an 8 or 10 play drive, something like that. It was like perfectly scripted. Ronnie Bell, we're just hitting every out route, every crossing route, every run was like it worked to perfection. That's the kind of drive that you have to have. So if you're listening out there, go rewatch that game. Go rewatch that first drive. That's what I want to come out to. It doesn't have to be a 75-yard touchdown. Listen, I'm not going to be mad if it is. I promise you that. But go and prove to Bama, prove to the world, prove to yourselves that, hey, we can run with these boys. We can push them around. We can establish the run. We can do all that. That's what I want to see. And at that point, if that happens, I think the confidence will be flushing through these boys. And it's like, all right, here we go. Now we're settled in. Let's go do that. The same thing again.
Yeah. Speaking of running with these boys, I think what would make my 2024 start in the most incredible way is, we have a running package with Alex Orji. Haven't seen him throw the ball. So nothing would make my year more than a little Alex Orji flea flicker for 60 yards in maybe the third quarter, right? Nobody really sees it coming. Oh, man. I'm excited.
I think you will see an Orji pass in this game.
I agree.
It just makes too much sense. But also maybe, we're Michigan fans, Michigan self-scouts. Maybe they're like, well, we haven't done it. They're going to be expecting it. So maybe there's something else. It's like a game of chess, right? It's like, what do I want to do? What does the opponent think I'm going to do? What can I do to play off of their, so there's so many different ways you could take that.
How many times back and forth do you go?
Right. Yeah.
Psychology, right?
Yeah. I know that you know that I know, right? Yeah. Like that thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. That Iowa game is a perfect example. It really set the tone. Ronnie Bell gets a touchdown on that sweep. Mm-hmm. I'd love to see more motion. Michigan has not run a ton of sweeps. Samaj could potentially be a guy. Hey, look, he's from Michigan. Maybe he doesn't have that SEC speed, but he's a 4.3 kid, right? We saw it in the Big Ten Championship. We saw it against Purdue. We've seen him make big plays with the ball in his hands. He's got a full season of college football under his belt, right? Maybe needs a couple more seasons of media training, but we don't need to talk about that right now. But the kid is going to make a play, in my opinion, in this game. I just think he's too talented, and I think he'll have some opportunities, whether it's a screen. I mean, they ran the screens to perfection against Penn State. So I think Michigan needs to be able to keep Alabama off balance. And I think you're spot on, man. Like Michigan needs to come out, get to a hot start. One thing I do want to see real quick, I'm going to add this. I want to see Roman Wilson utilized in motion more. Yes. Like against Michigan State, against some other teams that I can't recall right now. I don't have that Rain Man ability at the moment. Like get him in motion, get him going, get the defender going one way, get him just a quick, 5-yard whip route. Like just get him the ball in space, and let's see if our athletes can match up with their athletes, because everybody 100%. Thinks that they can't, but we all know they can.
100%. I love it. And I a lot of people are like, oh, I'm so scared because we're giving Nick Saban 30 days to, an entire month to prep for us. How about Jim Harbaugh a month to prep? He's a pretty fucking good coach. He knows what he's doing. Obviously Saban's one of the greatest of all times, but when you put it all together, Jim Harbaugh is one of the greatest of all time too. And, I love our assistant coaches. I feel like we're going to go into this with a great game plan. Even if what we just talked about doesn't happen, even if we do get down 10-0, something like that, where this team is different, where these last 3 teams were different than the previous decade was if we get down in this game, we're not scared. We're not curdling. The first 4 drives, of the Ohio State game, our offense wasn't doing shit, right? And then Will Johnson gets a pick and you make a play and you're fine, right? And so I think that, just staying level-headed no matter what happens in this game and not ever counting yourself out no matter what happens, or if you're up, not coasting, right? You got to pedal to the metal and know that they're going to, you got to play 4 quarters. There is the reality. So I think that's all I have. Do you guys have anything else you want to touch on before we take off?
I would like to quote a very well-known man, Ric Flair.
Ooh.
To be the man, you got to beat the man. I messed it up, but that I think for what Michigan has kind of gone through the last few years, and it doesn't matter, right? Like, they can't win in the playoffs. I've heard that a lot. I have Notre Dame fans that are friends, and they love to be like, because everybody gets on Notre Dame right when they get into the playoff, and so now it's starting to be the same thing with Michigan. Yeah. But all the stuff that's happened the last couple of years in the playoffs for Michigan to come out and you beat Alabama, like that's gonna feel even sweeter than it would. It's gonna feel amazing if they win either way, but like it would feel a lot sweeter than beating Florida State, because then everybody would be like, they didn't have their quarterback, blah blah blah, right? Mm-hmm. So to go and play Alabama could be a blessing to just kind of get that proverbial monkey off the back, and then you go into Houston potentially, and you've got everything on the line, and you've already slayed the dragon, right? Like Alabama is that team. Georgia's won the last couple, but Alabama has been that team for the last 15 years since Nick Saban's been there. So that's my take, man. I can't wait. I'm excited, nervous, anxious, all the emotions, and it's going to be a glorious day at Pretzel Bell.
Just us talking about it has me now anxious and not nervous, but excited. Which I think is I'm not much more feeling like going back to what you said. The Ohio State game, I was way more excited than I was nervous ever. I wasn't nervous until, to be honest, that last drive. Thank God it ended our way. Shout out Rod Moore, trust in Rod we trust. So yeah, man, I'm pumped. Listen, I've said it before, and I'll end it on this. If there was ever a team that I believed could do this, it's this team right here. It's absolutely this team. They've got all the tools. They've got the coaches. They've got the culture. They've got the guys that they want to do this. And, I feel like Jim Harbaugh feels the exact same. So I trust in Jim. I trust in these guys. And let's go get it done, man. Let's go win the fucking Rose Bowl.
God, you got any score predictions or anything?
Score predictions?
Oh God,
I can't even do it.
I don't think I'm there. I don't think I'm there.
If we could win 2-0, and I'd be the happiest man on the planet. So.
You and Kirk Ferentz both, my friends.
Well, we'll end it there. For us, you can follow us at Blue by 90 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 Podcast on YouTube, and blueby90.com. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.